Welcome back to the Compassionate Capitalist Show. And today we're going to dig into what is really terrific because when I discovered my guest, Cintia Mano, and as the CEO of Core Angels, it is a network of angel groups across Europe and beyond. She's probably going to tell us how they've been expanding. But their core mission that they had is so aligned to what I had attempted to do years ago when I was expanding the network of business angels and investors. And it was, but timing just wasn't right. And then what I want in the future of what I'm offering with the education that I'm providing to bring more angels into the marketplace. So, Core Angels is a platform that's dedicated to helping professionals transition from corporate careers to impactful angel investing in the startup ecosystem. Sound familiar? That was the target market from my book, Inside Secrets to Angel Investing. Really, all right. And it mixes the decision power and the involvement of angel investing with the structure and portfolio approach of a VC fund. So, really balancing the leverage of risk and reward and in the way that they approach. And incredibly, that they have a true culture of collaboration because quite frankly, in the United States, you don't often find that amongst angel groups and angels in general. I mean, when I was trying to get angels to help cultivate and educate and mentor the angels in my group when I was rebuilding network of business angels and investors, it really didn't exist in Atlanta. Atlanta was very competitive. Um, it was different in some of the bigger cities that had longer legacies like Boston and California, but a lot of places just really hasn't happened. And part of it, and we're going to get into this when I bring Cynthia on, um, Europe for the most part has fewer options in real estate. The big competitor for angel investors in the United States or successful corporate people or even founders that have exited is that they feel like because our myth here about asset and creating wealth and what assets are risky or not asset. We have a myth that real estate investing is not risky and angel investing is. And I talk about that all the time. Not going to talk about it on this particular podcast, but real estate is fairly available. But because of the legacy of ownership in Europe and a lot of the rules, because of the hundreds of years of history, it's hard to be a real estate investor in Europe compared to what it's like in the United States. And so so it's not as much of an asset allocation in the wealthy folks' wallets, right? So we're going to explore a lot of that. And, the myth that I've talked about, I'm not going to do that, but, as much, but sometimes I can't resist myself. Um, but here's what's really interesting. There at the last time that she and I spoke before we were working on figuring out how to do this podcast, they had 11 angel funds. I think that's still, yeah, true. And they teach within the program. They've had 93 startups come through and get funding. They have 300 angels and 50% are women. That is so different than it is in the United.
15. It's 15.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Dang, man.
But I need to
Still.
correct this. I would
All
love that
right.
it
All
was
right. All
15.
right. I thought that was like, man, oh man. So 15% are women. That's still at least double what it is in the United States. All right. And so she has an incredible story to share. It all started when a stranger asked her for a picture at an investment conference in Lisbon back in 2018. So first of all, welcome officially now that you've said hello, you've got to corrected me. I'm glad everybody needs to correct me all the time whenever it's wrong because this becomes a public record at some point. Welcome to the show, Cintia Mano of Core Angels. Thank you for being a guest on the Compassionate Capitalist Show.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie. I'm really happy to be here with you. As we have already spoken, we have many purposes aligned. And I need to correct you because although I would love to have 50% of my base of angels as women, we are working for this to reach this level one day. But it's still 15, which is good compared to the average of the industry, but there is a lot of work to
Yeah,
come.
yeah. So let's get started sharing some of your journey because you have worked in many industries from computer science, co-founded a software tech in the oil and gas. And as with a lot of startups, it's hard to raise capital, but when an economic shift impacts a whole industry, it can be devastating. So share with our listeners how you went from employee to startup founder to angel investor.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yes, I've been doing. I studied computer science and I worked as a developer for a while. By that time, we didn't use this word developer; it was programmer or something like this. And I worked with information technology for a while. Then I did my MBA. I went working for a strategic consulting firm, and I was then worked for many multinational companies, and well, climbing the corporate ladder, understanding how the game was played, and I was quite happy with the work. But many times questioning myself if this was all about my life would be only this. Okay, so sometimes I felt like I need to do something more, or I need to try other ways of working. Entrepreneurship was something that was not on my mind for many years. I was not raised to be an entrepreneur. I was raised to go to a good university, to take good courses, to go to good companies, work for them, make money, and have a stable life, and then go on with that. But I had an opportunity. In fact, I was in a period that I was questioning my career and thinking about doing something else. I had already decided by that time that I would take a 1 year off, a sabbatical year. Talk to people, figure out what I was willing to do. I was very tired of the corporate environment, I think that for people that loves to execute and build things, sometimes it's kind of exhaustive. And then I had this opportunity to join a startup that was founded by that time. It was 12 years ago. It was many years ago. And I decided to take the leap of faith and go for it. And it changed my life. It changed my career for sure, but it also has changed my life, my personal life, my perspective, my beliefs. So it was a very, very interesting choice that I made by that time. And then I experienced the life of a founder. How is it to be a startup? How is it to do the math every time and see if we have enough money to pay employees to, to invest in the new product, to launch, and all this sort of things. And working with innovation, which makes things a little harder when it comes to sales and this sort of thing. So by that time I started also mentoring some startup founders, especially because of my experience in the corporate side, and especially the founders that were working with B2B companies, B2B startups. So they needed some help in understanding how to approach big companies, how to deal with their processes, their complexities. And I started mentoring some startups and understanding that, well, funding was not a problem only for my startup, but for many others, especially in the early stage. And that many amazing founders were deciding to close their companies because of lack of funding, because they didn't, or they were making decisions because they didn't have enough funding to back them up for a while they were developing their products, testing the market, etc. This is how I ended up thinking of becoming an angel investor. By that time, I already invested in some other assets, but investing in startups, I thought, well, this is really risky. And so it took me some time to get more information and then make a decision to start doing it.
Yeah. So so now was mentoring, that was a big piece of the process that kind of inched you closer to becoming an angel investor. Is
Yeah.
that because a lot of times that's one of the things I see happen in when we have incubator type programs and they have mentors, volunteers that are angel investors. And I tell sometimes new angels that they should volunteer first at these and start to learn lots of stuff. And when you really, particularly if you want to be an active angel, when you find the mentor that, when you find
Yeah.
the founder that is really doing something you're interested in and they listen well and you jive with them, then it's something to think about putting your money in. So was that similar for you as part of your mentor journey into angel?
Pretty much. And to be honest, until now, I'm a volunteer in mentorship programs. I'm a mentor in Founder Institute. So I like to do, I go to juries in universities. I like to be there where the founders are. Um, because then we can get the feeling of what's coming from the beginning, and also understanding and monitoring good opportunities, getting to know what these people are developing. And sometimes it's not immediate, but sometimes after 2 years that that startup, that you've been talking to those founders, then you meet them in an investment committee where they are fundraising and you are truly discussing an opportunity of investment. And sometimes just giving back, it's just trying to support them and learn also from them, from their businesses. So I really recommend this too. I started this way. And I also like to keep this type of activity. I think it's very, very good for me, very important to understand the mindset of the founders. And this helps me not only with those founders that I'm working with, but also with the founders that I have invested in. So it's really important.
So let's talk about the core angels. And I said at the beginning that it started with this picture. So talk about what that
That's a
was.
funny story.
Yeah, tell us that story and like how that evolved.
Yeah, that's a good story, Karen. I have just arrived in Lisbon. I've been living in Lisbon for 6 years. I arrived in Lisbon and it was kind of looking around to see what kind of events should I go to understand how the innovation scene is here, to look for opportunities, how to engage with investments in startups, understand how the ecosystem was working. And then I'd been to an event that was dedicated to startup investors. I was there in the entrance, and a guy asking me, "Oh, would you mind taking a picture of me here in the interest of the event?" I said, "Okay, cool." And then we started talking, and we started talking about investing in startups. He had already made some investments. He was quite familiar with a group here in Portugal that was doing something different. So they were getting angels together to invest in the same portfolio of startups. He shared this story with me. I found, well, this is very interesting because it looks like this model solves some of the issues that I had that prevented me from starting investing in startups. And then he introduced me to the leaders of this group. The name of this group is Red Angels. It was the first group that we were investing together as angels. So I became an angel of that group. And then this is where I realized that, well, for me, it makes much more sense to be investing in startups in a group. And so I realized about the advantages of doing this inside a community. It's really hard that you can know about all the industries, or that you feel so comfortable to make decisions and to know about all the progress of technology in so different industries. So if you want to diversify and build a portfolio to reduce your risk of investing in startups, I thought it was a very good way. So I joined this group. This guy was part of this group also. And 1 year later, we were at Web Summit here in Lisbon.
Hmm.
This guy and me and I, we were at Web Summit. And we thought about creating a new group that would have a different investment thesis. And then we talked to the founders of this first group, and they said, "Okay, we help you. Let's do it together. Let's go for it." And this is how we created the first group of core angels. Okay, so this first group of core angels was led by this guy from the picture and me. So I would never guess by that time in that event that 1 year later we would be founding a group together with a
Yeah.
specific thesis, and then starting core angels that then evolved to be a network of groups, and then expanding to many other countries.
Yeah, that's it really is quite I was delighted to hear about Core Angels and what you've done as that network because I feel uh in a way it's a little bit like Keiretsu is here in the United
Yeah,
States, except that you are working with really much more at the startup stage. They try to work with companies that are beyond their first round of angel
yeah,
investment. And so a little bit different that way. But as far as the breadth of knowledge and experience that all the different angels bring together when it comes to understanding and, like the merits of a deal or the um the industry, what kind of things, what's the potential exit, just the experience, because you get a broad base of people from not only industries but their own, whether they've been in a business or a corporate or whatever, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's really good. So talk about the angels in your network. We sort of, I don't want to say although I did do my percentages with you before we started, I want to make sure, you know what I mean? So out of the, like, of these angels, I did those numbers about how many angels across all of the groups, and they cut the ones that have invested, what has been their experience, and their motivations to be a part of your particular group and the way you guys do your thesis.
Okay. Yes. Currently, we are 11 angel funds, as you said. These funds, they are incorporated in 8 different countries.
Okay.
Most of them here in Europe, but we also have in the US, in Brazil, in Chile, and in the Middle East also.
Oh, okay.
And uh, and today we are almost 300 angels. All of them are investors. All of them are invested in startups because in our model, um, when you invest, it's not that you pay a membership just to take a look at deals. When you invest, you put your money in one fund, and this fund will be invested in the startups. So all of them are active investors. And having this model of a fund, of a portfolio, also makes the community much more dynamic because the fund leaders, they are bringing every 2 months or every 3 months to an investment committee a group of startups that they feel like matches the investment thesis and that the angels should be analyzing for investment. So this is who we are. 15%, as you said, of female investors. And half of them have never invested in startups before joining us. And the other half, they already had some experience, but they thought that joining a group would be interesting not only to leverage their knowledge about it, learn and network, but also to help them make decisions. And it's quite funny because when we are analyzing a startup and investment committee, it's not rare that we change our minds after we ask some questions from a colleague or after when the debriefing session we are discussing the opportunity because the colleague can know much more about that industry than you, or we can have complementary skills that will help us analyze the deal.
Yeah, and so then so instead of a membership fee, like what but is sort of traditional, I think Tech Coast Angels kind of does it the way you do it, where they have a fund, and then the fund, and I guess you have assignments for committees and things like that for to be able to vet the deals, do the due diligence, screen them, all those kind of things, and then the investors can do go into a sidecar and add on to the investment if they want more than what the fund is putting in, they want their own
Yes.
shares.
Yeah. If they want to invest on top of what the group decided, they can do that. And usually what we do is that if you're part of a fund and there will be an investment committee, everyone is invited to participate in the investment committee. Of course, that it might happen in a time that you cannot attend, but then you'll receive the recording. We'll have a window for voting, like 7 days, 10 days. Everybody's able to watch the recording, read all the data room, understand what it's all about, and vote. So in the end, if the angels decide to invest, then the leader will continue the negotiation, due diligence, and more depth, and then sign the contract and make the investment. This is how it usually works.
Okay. Okay, so it's really so how has it been in that you have um I think one of the things that we all sort of work towards as you and I, being both passionate about what I call compassionate capitalists, right? People that invest their time, knowledge, resources, money into entrepreneur endeavors to bring innovation to market and create jobs and wealth for all those involved, right? That's the
Yeah.
definition. And a big part of that I have found, and I've been frustrated in the United States some, is that, and I think in part it's because it's so difficult to raise capital, that founders that get all the way through that gauntlet, because there's not enough investors, right? But as they get all the way through that gauntlet and they grow to a point of being, successful and having an exit, they're kind of like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. And trying to get them to turn around and like pay it forward or whatever, become an angel
Exactly.
investor, go through it. It seems so logical. Why do you think? I mean, do you find that ex founders don't? Is it as hard to get ex founders to become angel investors as it is to corporate people?
I think it's even harder, I guess. I think that
Okay.
maybe if they just made an exit, they are, oh my God, now I just need a rest. Okay. I'm just fed up with that stuff. I need to be on the beach for a while or something, or invest in something that is less riskier. But the thing is, we've been seeing some ex-founders investing as angels. Right now we are closing an exit, and our conversation with these founders is, well, aren't you going to invest in startups? Why you should do that? And because you know it all, you have been. It's a kind of experience, and I don't think it's the only experience that matters to founders, but being mentored by a person from the corporate is different than being mentored by a person from the entrepreneurship world. So having ex-founders as angels would add a lot of value to those startups.
Right.
It's absolutely important. And they don't need to invest that much. Usually what we advise people to invest is not more than 10% of your wealth in this type of assets. So maybe if they could invest 10% of their assets is amazing already, because it's not only it's money that comes with a lot of expertise, with a lot of experience that they just gone through, and that they could share, and provide some shortcuts to the founders, or avoid some headaches that they faced. We are trying to bring more and more ex-founders. We see that they feel like the ones that engage, they are really valuable. They provide tons of advice, and in a different mindset, in a different pace. They understand that there is not much time to be refining things, and doing is just like testing, interacting, getting feedback from the market, changing, etc. So this is very rich, and it is also rich for the group, because I like to say that the angels, they don't learn only from the founders, they learn also from the other angels. So it's
Sure.
very interesting when you have an angel that comes, that doesn't have this experience of being an entrepreneur, discussing certain things with an ex-founder. It's a
Yeah.
very rich learning.
Yeah. So I think that's part of overcoming the learning curve is sort of that skills transfer and that sharing of information, the relationships that get developed. So, talk about how you also help. This would because sometimes founders that are of a startup that exits their experience because they don't understand necessarily always the decisions that the angels went through when they came to evaluating and sometimes they learn from their no's to get to the yeses and things like that, but the whole corporate, they know mostly kind of begin to sort of like even in the corporate environment how you judge an established business because how some a company gets acquired is a lot different than the evaluation you do when you're thinking about investing in a startup, or going out to some kind of investment fund that's going to acquire the company. So talk about how you within your networks educate to analyze startups different than established businesses and that sort of if there is a matrix of comparison on that, what factors do you use?
Yeah, this is very interesting, Karen, because this is a very recurring subject when we are discussing deals, especially when you have the beginners or people who are very used to the corporate style. And I can tell you by my experience also, when I was before doing evaluation of a startup as a founder, my experience was in analyzing operations that were established, like discounted cash flow, EBITDA, and this sort of thing. And then when I started saying that, well, how I'm going to evaluate this business and then apply this to my business, and started understanding all the methodologies. And as an angel, I had to learn more and more about it. So one of the discussions that comes very frequently is this difference between the metrics that we analyze. And right now we are working on a set of training courses specifically about some of the matters. So like metrics for startups, why should I look at this and not look at this? Why pay too much attention in this metric? Doesn't mean much, at least in this industry, but maybe in this other industry. So it's a group of information and that we need to share and that we need to discuss more because it looks like because this is why people sometimes say, oh, valuation is a mix of science and art. There is a lot of gut feeling. Well, it's not exactly gut feeling, but it's more like comparing similar businesses or understanding what is the impact of bringing a business from one market to another. So there are many variables involved that needs to be considered, but we don't have a single formula that you just put in a spreadsheet and you say, voila, that's it. So
Yeah,
it's really hard, and but we have these discussions every time, especially when we are talking about very early stage. Because when we are talking about pre-seed startups, sometimes they don't even have revenue or they have very little revenue. But we are always talking about potential. It's not about what they are doing right now, especially because what they are doing right now is what they could do with the resources that they had. But
right.
if we're thinking that we are giving these people more resources, what they can do with these new resources. Okay, then we have to evaluate the potential of the market, the trends of the market, if the solution they are solving, if the solution they are providing really solves that problem, if the problem is really important, and all those aspects. So when we are in the early stage, in the pre-seed, in the seed, it's even harder to understand and to make this assessment of potential. You have some signals, you have some things that it's good to take a look at, but it's not sharp. It's not 100%. It's not even 80%, so it'll never be. So this is the worst part. But I think that we have been evolving a lot and like bringing discussions to our leaders also. We have meetings that brings our leaders together and we discuss all those issues and they share their practice also. Some of them, they bring tools that they have been using, or I just found out that site that provides this database that provides some information for comparables, and then they share those good practice and tools, and this improves a lot their capacity of helping the angels also understand this.
Okay, so as you, you have built, I mean, it's really quite amazing. And given that 2019 was when you really kind of got this started, and then
Yeah,
we had a worldwide pandemic, right?
yeah.
That really affected really everything that everybody did, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I guess you could be, but I would bet that there was a lot of, because of the uncertainty, reluctance to make investments during 2020 and even probably leading, even though virtually doing virtual meetings
Yeah.
became a norm. So
Hmm.
how have you um created the word of mouth, evangelize this to not just be in your own country, but to be in
Okay.
all these other countries and have created this sort of, I don't, it's not really an uprising, but a bubble up of enthusiasm to, 300 angels. I mean, this is
Yeah.
just like, tell people out there that are trying to start their own angel groups, are looking at this, wondering, I know we're going to be partnering up and I'm going to be learning from you on how to do all this stuff. But, share with the audience, what is the secret of evangelizing and creating angel communities?
Yeah, yeah. You were saying, I was just thinking, yeah, we started this in 19, as you said, and but there was no pandemic by that time. And the thing is, what happened was that the first leaders of the groups, they were all part of this first group, okay, that I mentioned. So I was part of that group, and I thought, well, this is interesting to create a group like this, but with a different investment thesis. There was a person from Spain that was also part of the group and liked the model and said, oh, I would like to implement something like this in Spain, and then decided to implement this in Spain. And then there comes a friend of a friend. So it was really word of mouth. And the thing is that the pandemic also helped us in this. because by that time we always heard that sentence that angels, they like to invest in business that are at most 2 hours distance driving from their homes, okay, because then they can go there, they can speak to the founders, know how the business is going, etc. And when the pandemic came, there was no more things like that. People would not, or they would not do business anymore, or they would have to transfer all their business environment to the virtual rooms. And this is what happened. So in a way, it helped us, because when we started bringing those people together, and in the beginning we were helping each of these potential leaders one by one in a very manual and very testing and improving way. But then we decided, well, there is a group of knowledge here that we can pack, and then we can make available to people that are willing to initiate their angel funds with us. So maybe we could share this with more people. And because of that, we because of the pandemic, we thought that this could only be online. There was no other way. People could not come to Lisbon, or so we were not restricted only to Portugal, or we were not restricted only to Portugal and Spain. We started making this available, and reaching out to our connections. So another thing that also helped is that one of our co-founders did a PhD in angel investing. He was connected with many angels across the world. So many people reached out to him and say, oh, I saw that you are launching angel groups, angel funds. What is this about? So this is how the movement started. And then we could be able to bring these people to this acceleration program that we have designed. But if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if we would be able to attract people from so different places, because
Right.
probably they would be there in their cities, in
Uh-huh.
their events, in their clubs. So I think it helped us a lot also.
Yeah. And I think also, I think you had mentioned before, having some of the angels evangelize their stories and experiences. So it's not something that high net worth people think is exclusive to a golden level of billionaires, I think was the term you had
Yes.
used before, right?
Yeah. And Karen, this is so important, because it's very important that we can bring the stories of those people. When we take a look at these 300 angels that we have in the network, we have different profiles. We have men, women, people who are working, people who have retired, people who are ex-founders. All of them, they had a reason, a motivation to invest in startups and for being an angel. Okay, and it's important that we share these stories, because the people watching it, they will feel like, well, maybe this is something that I could do. And this kind of identification is extremely important to bring more angels, to bring more people helping the future leads, building their businesses. Once I was in a conference in France with business angels, and I heard a research saying that we were talking about first time angels. And I think was something like 2/3 said that they didn't start angel investing before because they didn't even know that it was an activity, that it was something that people could do, that regular people could do, that normal people could do. They thought it was something just for billionaires, or for people who were throwing 5 million away, out of the pocket. And this is not like this. So yes, you can have executives invest, and you can have uh, um, um, many other people from different profiles that are used to, that like to the topics of technology, innovation, businesses, that has some experience that can share with the future leaders, the startup founders. So this is not for everyone, of course, but it's not for just 5 or 6. It's we have a lot more people that could come and join this movement.
Yeah. Okay, so your website is Core Angels, CoreAngels.com. And
Perfect.
is that good for both investors and entrepreneurs to go to plug in? Like how do interested investors listening and interested entrepreneurs raising capital, I guess in Europe or in some of the countries, whatever, because there is a geographic element to it as well as the vertical. Talk about how people engage with Core Angels.
Yeah, in our site, you can find our funds, all of them with their investment theses, where founders can submit their pitches, apply for discussing their deals. Also, the connections of the leaders. So, I recommend entrepreneurs to submit their decks and also make connections with those leaders. For angels, we have webinars available, we have articles, we have some a knowledge center with some information. And in the very near future, we'll have also training available for them. So in our website, you can find this all.
Yep, yep. And okay, so all right. As we wrap up here, anything else that you would like to add?
Now, I would just like to thank you so much, Karen. And I think that you've been doing a great work and trying to bring people to think differently about their careers, their lives, how they invest, look at alternatives. And if angel investing is of any interest for your audience, for anyone who listening to us, feel free to make contact to join us in our website, contact on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Okay, very great. And for me, if you want to learn about the angel investing training that we offer, my book, on my website is karenrands.co or cougaran.com. And in the show notes, you can get to my link tree, which is a bit.ly, LINKCCCS. So you can get to all the players for the podcast as well as the education program and onwards and upwards. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please like and share and spread the word about compassionate capitalism.